clarification on the process now. We're talking about the budget.
The introduced budget.
The introduced budget. At the last council meeting, there were two voted on resolutions, I guess, or motions. Are those two motions now on this agenda?
No, they actually have to be introduced and amended.
You're now discussing the introduced budget at this particular hearings. Have you closed the hearing?
The hearing's closed.
The hearing is closed. Now council has to decide, are you voting on the introduced budget? And if you're not voting on the introduced budget, if you want to amend the budget, you have to propose an amendment, and depending what that amendment is, whether or not it can be considered tonight, it depends what the motion is and what line items are affected.
But I'm confused. I thought we proposed the amendment at the last meeting where we made a motion and we had a roll call.
No, you can't amend the budget except tonight. What you did last meeting, and it was only one number, you instructed the manager.
No, it was two.
No, it was two numbers.
It was two. Well, there was some discussion. The vote was taken on 1,700,000 and change.
And the vote was taken on 9 and a quarter.
I think you'll find, if you look at the minutes, that the 1,700,000 superseded the 9. But I might be wrong.
I don't know what the word. I know what the word superseded means. Are you saying that the 1.7 canceled out the earlier vote?
I believe that was the case, and I think that was the manager's understanding. And I think what you have tonight is a proposed amendment with the original cuts of 1,700,000 and change, right? And I think the manager may have come up with another recommended cut, but anything other than those two items would delay the adoption of the budget and
anything
a vote.
Other than which two items?
The $925,000 as well as the $1.8 million.
No,
not the 925. 1.7. Well, I believe the manager has another recommended.
Yeah.
I think you should.
I'm sorry. If I still have the phone on my Madam Mayor. I'm still very confused. Who said it's superseded? Just by the fact that a higher number was proposed, so it knocked out the lower number?
Okay. I don't have the minutes right in front of me, but my understanding.
No, because I just want to make it clear. Because what you're saying,
the council discussed a number of numbers. It started with, I think, a $300,000 from Councilman Pruitt. There was a $900,000, and then it turned out to be $1,730,000 and change.
So, just for clarity,
what action are you looking for?
Oh, I think what's happening is that by not having all three options on the table, it handicaps this council.
You have all three options.
You have whatever options you want to put on the table. You have to deal with them.
Because the amendment can only take place tonight, the actual official amendment.
You have to deal with it one at a time.
Can I have a point of order?
You've had a hearing on the introduced budget.
Correct.
You should see if you have votes to pass that introduced budget.
Okay.
If the budget fails, someone should then propose an amendment. And you could make that amendment as to whatever number you want. If the number is 1.7 with all the cuts that the manager made, then the hearing has to be adjourned so that the resolution can be prepared and advertised. It has to be advertised because of the amount of the money. So there's no confusion. Vote the first budget up or down. If it's up, if you have 4 votes to pass it, it passes. So if you don't have it up, then you put forth whatever amendment you want, whether it's 1.7, 2 million, or $2.
So what was the 1.7 and the 9 and the 9 and a quarter?
Direction to the manager to make the cuts. Where would you make the cuts, Mr. Manager? You put it on the table for the manager to make the cuts. He came back and said, if you don't pass the original budget and you want to cut 1.7, here are my recommendations. You don't have to accept his recommendations. Councilman Castle has other recommendations. So you're not at any disadvantage. The hearing was scheduled. You have to have it. The process is 100% correct. Don't confuse it. Vote the hearing up or down. If you have 4 votes, it passes.
What was the 9 and a quarter motion?
Let me, can I speak something on Mr. Katz?
Madam Mayor.
Apparently,
Wait,
I was at
can
the
I have
meeting.
order?
I was at the meeting, so I can.
Dr. Pruitt, Councilman Hamaduddin.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would like to introduce the adopted budget with the following amendments. Take out $250,000 from the Bergen County Utilities Authority, and to take out the $70,000 for the park rangers. If I could have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Now, that is a motion that the manager prepared a resolution that you have the proper line items. If you have 4 votes for that resolution, the clerk would have to read it in to the record. You could pass that this evening, because it's less than 10% on those particular line items. So if that's the motion, which it is, it should be read into the record.
The amendment has to be read in full into the record before a vote.
Who has it? We'll read it. If you give it to us, we'll read it into the record. Let me have it, Jamie.
Stanley, can I just make a clarification? Because I don't want there to be an assumption. This document, this is not a comprehensive list of, it's not all or nothing here. It's, in presenting this, the idea was that we'd have an opportunity to have an up or down vote on specific line items and go from there.
And you can do that. If that's what you want to do, you can do that. And it may not be able to be passed tonight in the form of a budget, but if this resolution is passed...
We have a motion and a second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Could you
Let me
read?
read what the motion is. Amend the budget by $320,000. Whereas the local municipal budget for the year 2014 was approved on the 15th day of July 2014. Whereas the public hearing on said budget was held as advertised, and whereas it is desired to amend said approved budget, now therefore be approved by the mayor and council of the Township of Teaneck, County of Bergen, that the attached amendments to the approved budget of 2014 be made. And here, I'm going to read the entire attachment. General revenues, amount to be raised by taxes for support of the municipal budget. A, local tax for municipal purposes, including reserves for uncollected taxes. From the introduced budget, $53,606,842.66 to Budget Amendment 1, $286,842.66. C, minimum library tax, $1,732,615.42 from the introduced budget to Budget Amendment 1. The number is the same, $1,732,615.42. Total amount to be raised by taxes for support of the municipal budget from the introduced budget, $55,339,458.08 to Budget Amendment Number 1, $55,019,458.08. Total general revenue from the introduced budget, $70,859,314.90 to Budget Amendment Number 1, $70,539,314.90. General appropriations, operations within caps, police, salary and wages, $12,809,151.55 from the introduced budget to Budget Amendment Number 1, $12,739,151.55. Total operations within cap, from introduced budget, $48,887,208.08 to Budget Amendment Number 1, it's $48,817,208.08. Total operations including contingent with caps, detail, salary and wages from the introduced budget, $48,907,208.08 to Budget Amendment Number 1, $48,837,208.08. Detail, salary and wages, $33 million from the introduced budget, $33,509,153.08 2, budget amendment number 1, $33,439,153.08. Other expenses including contingent. From the introduced budget, $15,398,045 to budget amendment number 1, $15,398,045. No cents. Total general appropriations for municipal purposes within cap from the introduced budget, $55,769,264.45. To budget amendment number 1, $55,699,264.45. Operations excluded from caps, Bergen County Utility Authority sewer service charge. From the introduced budget, $4,400,000. To budget amendment number 1, $4,150,000. Total other operations excluded from caps, $7 million from the introduced budget, $7,744,419. To budget amendment number 1, $7,494,419. Total operations excluded from cap. From the introduced budget, $7,894,382.27. To budget amendment number 1, $7,644,382.27. Details, salary and wages. $1 million from the introduced budget, $1,936,619. To budget amendment number 1, $1,936,619. Other expenses. From the introduced budget, $5,957,763.27. To the budget amendment number 1, $5,707,763.27. Total general appropriations for municipal purposes excluded from caps. From introduced budget, $11,496,342.06. To budget amendment number 1, $11,246,342.06. Subtotal general appropriations, from introduced budget, $67,265,606.51. To budget amendment number 1, $66,945,606.51. Total general appropriations. From the introduced approved budget, $70,859,314.90. To budget amendment number 1, $70,539,314.90.
Can we have a roll call?
Is this amendment available to the public, and is there a public hearing?
Dr. Powers, you're way out of line. No, there is not a hearing on the amendment.
Can we have a look, is it available to the public?
Would you like a copy?
Be it further resolved that 2 certified copies of this resolution be filed forthwith in the office of the Director of Local Government Services for their certification of the initial municipal budget so amended. It's hereby certified that this is a true copy of the resolution amending the budget adopted by the governing body on the 12th day of August 2014. So the motion on the floor is to pass this proposed amended budget, which first you vote on the amendment, then you vote on the amended budget.
So what's the total?
$320,000 consisting of, I believe, $70,000
For the park rangers.
for the park rangers and $250,000 from the BCAU. So that's the motion that you're voting on.
Sure. Roll call.
Councilmember Castle?
I need to ask a question about all these numbers that were just read. I need to ask a question, because I'm not going to fake the funk up here. I'm going to ask a question. When it comes to voting on this amendment, can we add amendments on to what is proposed here?
No.
It would have to be defeated, and a new motion would have to be introduced. If you vote this amendment, then you vote the budget with this amendment. If you vote if you don't want this amendment, if you want to add things to the amendment, you have to defeat the amendment and propose a new amendment, which could include that at that point.
In this particular budget, because I think the public probably has even less clarity since they don't have the document in front of them, and I'm sitting here doing the math, I see $145,000 for police salaries. Yes, it's a question. It's a question. I want to make sure that I'm clear before I spend your money, sir. For the police line item under salaries, there's a reduction of $145,000. Correct?
Mr. Castle, we're on a roll call.
I understand, Mayor, but if you want me to just haphazardly throw out a vote, as has been done in the past, I'm not going to do that.
So then vote
I'd
no.
like some clarity.
So vote no or abstain.
No.
Councilmember Hamidine,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Katz,
No.
Councilmember Pruitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwartz,
I'm going to make a comment afterwards, but vote yes in the interim.
Councilmember Sol,
No.
Mayor.
Yes. Councilman,
Can we comment now?
Wait, the next procedure is to vote the amended budget.
It's a separate vote. You've now moved an amendment, okay? That's now been passed, right? What has not yet been done is a vote on the budget as amended. That's the next one.
I would just say, my understanding with the manager and the CFO, the only changes from this amended budget to the introduced budget is reducing $70,000, which was in the budget for the park rangers, and reducing $250,000 from the line item that was for the BCUA. No other changes were made to the budget. That's the intent.
I understand the intent, but I have a tremendous problem with hearing residents speak for an hour to discuss about their issues, their recommendations, their ideas about the budget, and then to have a document that is shoved under our noses at 11:15 without being shared with the public, without a single word of discussion by the council as to any other possibilities. I think we failed. I mean, this does not go back to July 29th. This does not go back to January 1st. This goes back for years. And I think we need to have an open, honest discussion about the way that we fund this township. And I think this is exactly the wrong way to pass a budget at 11:15 at night without any discussion.
Councilman Schwartz.
I think the term is everything happens for a reason, and this is my second budget that I'm working on, and the last 9 months have been an incredible learning experience, something I hope I'd have the privilege to work on for many years to come. It was a hard decision, and we've heard people I must have spoken to at least in person 60 to 70 residents in the last 5 or 6 days, dozens and dozens by email literally every single day, and it was a hard vote, but one that I am comfortable voting on today, knowing that in approximately 8 weeks we're going to begin the 2015 budget, and that's a budget that we can no longer use that excuse. It's 11:15 at night. It's 8 months late. It's 6 months late. The state's going to come over. It's a budget that we need to take everything we've discussed, everything we've learned over these last 6 months, and put to work. I commend Councilman Castle for the handouts that you gave, and something we reviewed in detail and studied these last few days. It's something that I want to put to work, as mentioned, in next year's budget in 2 months from now. I think to the township residents, what they've realized is that everything comes at a cost. The costs outlined were way too much for me from the services presented. One thing Dr. Harris did mention is that number is actually tax deductible. It's a little bit less, but I still think there's a lot of work that could be done. The padding, which is a very bad word, I'd like to see that number cleaned up and get better numbers there. We've heard reasons why it is there, why reasons it shouldn't be there, and we need to. The exercise may not result in anything better for next year, but I think we actually can. I think we have the time now to work on it. And then we need to start talking about cuts and adjustments, and that includes dispatch, for example. The dispatch savings was about $450,000. But more importantly, on the tour of the facility, the captain in charge will tell you it's not about savings. It's about better product. And I believe, and I hope our chiefs and our unions believe, that the product they offer will be better. To our police union representative here today, I've always stood by and supported the police department for all their hard work. I want to see that dispatch savings, fire and police, so we can keep our uniforms, keep our guys on the road, not spend the money on the, I think, $700,000 in upgrading to equipment, and not spend it on hiring more dispatchers, but spending it on boots on the ground, to use that expression, in your honor. Just an example, by the way, the dispatch center will offer our current dispatchers if they qualify the right to be working there first, so our people will still know our streets. And to use the example, Maple Avenue, Maple Street, you'd never need to know the difference. The number sequence says it all. So no one's going to the wrong house, no matter who's dispatching. You can dispatch Maple out of Alaska. You're going to the right house. So I thank everyone. I thank the residents for coming out to all the meetings and for the constant input. And I look forward to putting this budget behind us and you putting it to work immediately for the next year's budget.
Sure. I just wanted...
You need a vote on the...
I know that a vote. Deputy Mayor wants to make a comment.
All right. This was a very interesting night and a very interesting process, and I appreciate all the hard work that everybody did, the manager and the staff, and even the council, regardless of where you feel the final number should end. The reality is that you have 7 members on the council here. You got staff that at the end of the day want to try to do what's best for the community. Honestly, I don't know. We just can't agree on what that number is as far as the best. What I do know is that we're in a reval year. We're going to have a very strong impact on many of the residents in this community. And you know what? The extra money that it may be adding to the budget may be, for some, not a lot of money. I think someone else mentioned it, that adding that to what you're already paying is a lot of money. I know that most of my neighbors are anywhere between, and that's the neighbors on my block, anywhere between $12,000 and $17,000 a year in taxes on their home, and that's more than just some McDonald's once a week. You know, and I feel the pain. I really do. I feel it personally, and I feel it for my neighbors, and I feel it for everybody in this room that is struggling to try to pay these bills. And I think that's the same feeling that everybody here on the council feels. And that's why it's taken so long to pass a budget. That's why it's been such a chaotic process, because we can't agree. We all want the services to continue. We do have an amazing DPW. We do have a great police department. We do have a fantastic fire department. I've been with all 3 of those services on the front lines during emergencies. We have, great library. I mean, I have to go through all of the departments, the rec senior center for the youth, and no one wants to give up that little piece that we're paying for, what they're enjoying. When I see these vacant positions, I don't look at it as that we're spending the money this year. I look at it as we're making an obligation to the residents of this town for 20 to 25 years. That's why I constantly try to fight to come up with a hiring freeze, not because we don't need these people, but because I don't want to hurt these people. I don't want to bring them on, and next year we give them an unstable work environment by deciding, okay, should we get rid of them? Should we keep them? That's not the way to properly treat the employees, and it's not the way to properly treat the residents who the employees are serving. So I'm not going to support the number because it looks like it does have the support already to pass. I would like to see a higher number, especially since the vacant positions, I'm not interested in seeing those filled. But this is my position, and I do thank everyone who was involved in this process for all your hard work. And I know there was some high emotions tonight. I know there was finger pointing. Listen, the reality is we can say whatever we want to say about the Rhoda Center, but we turned to the Recreation Department and we turned to all the department heads and said, please present us cuts. The Recreation Department supervisor didn't say, I found you the cuts, and it's in the Police Department. She said, I found you the cuts, and this is where I can possibly find it in my line. We're not happy about it, and it was very good that the mayor, before her opening speech, tried to reduce, as a public body, reduce the tensions by making it clear that this wasn't the council's intentions, nor would the council support it. And I know that each one of us privately in the last week and a half sent the same message to the residents. Unfortunately, we have to go through this exercise. This is how the sausage is being made. We're here trying to fight for every single taxpayer and the residents to try to make sure that you can continue to afford to live in this town. We just can't always agree on what that number is. So, thank you.
I just want to basically say that it's a balancing act. It's a balancing act of trying to determine where we can cut and what services we want to continue to provide. As I've indicated many times, no matter what area you decide to look at to cut, you will have whatever constituency in here lobbying against that cut. Cuts have consequences. When $6.2 million was cut from the budget, people say that the Board of Ed survived, but they survived at what cost? They lost 40-something employees. They lost 40 employees. They lost wonderful programs that they would like to be able to offer to the students. Cuts have consequences. I did not support the $1.7 million cut. I didn't support the $925,000 cut. I wasn't here during that budget hearing. What I will say is that those cuts were voted upon, and it's easy to point fingers at the manager and say that he did it and was retaliating towards the public, which I very much doubt that he was, but never once after that vote was taken did you say this is off limits or that's off limits. So I think we all need to take part in whatever role we played in this process. The management of this town had to be prepared should those cuts have taken place. Press releases were sent out proud of the cuts that were made, not even knowing where the money was coming from.
You're wrong.
Yes, it was.
No, I'm saying you're wrong.
I'm not wrong.
Speak for yourself, Mayor.
I'm not wrong.
But you're wrong.
I am not wrong.
Can I just say one thing? I'll just say one thing. One thing is that, as you can see, Teaneck is a very difficult town to govern sometimes. And I was hoping after, that this next budget process and lining up behind our mayor would have made it a lot easier. But it's not usually the case that that's the way it works. In election years, it's very hard to pass a budget. Nobody wants to increase taxes in a budget year. Then they want to be fiscal conservatives, and then at the same time, deliver all the services. I think Joe Harris nailed it on the head about all the problems that we have in our town, as well as the cost effectiveness of what we are going through. If those numbers are correct, I didn't look at them. But I think let's all work together, put this vote behind us, and let's not grandstand when we lose. Well, I'm sure I'll be on the losing end of a couple of 4-3 votes or 5-2 votes or whatever. But let's realize that, we can disagree without being disagreeable. We can point fingers as lot as we want, but that's not going to serve our residents, and it's not going to serve what we're elected here to do. So I know we have a roll call. I don't know when we're going to vote, but I hope we vote soon.
Sure, roll call.
May I have a moment since everyone...
You'll take your moment regardless if you have it or not, so just go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor.
Got to call a question before you have a roll call.
We have a motion to pass, there's a motion on the table to pass the budget as amended. That's what you need a roll call vote. Councilman Castle wanted to make a comment, I believe.
I've simply just gone down and looked at the difference in the dollar amounts. And I don't think that there's anybody up here who can confidently say what $145,000 is coming out of, or where $300,000 is being added. Yes, this is a frustrating process. Mayor, the reason I said that you were wrong is because I actually provided detail for those cuts. The reason I said you were wrong is because I met with the manager, had conversations with the manager, emailed the manager 7 times since the last meeting, and made these recommendations. So to say that a press release went out and it was, no. We took action to have a conversation. If we should not be hiring an assistant construction official, we should say we should not hire an assistant construction official. If we're not hiring civilian dispatchers, we should say that. I don't understand why we can't simply have an up or down vote on the line items that were presented so that the public is clear and so that every member of council is clear. Because right now, not everyone is clear.
I think it's very clear.
I mean, we cannot, I said that we're not borrowing from surplus. We cannot budget saying that there's $300,000 in surplus. Right now, it goes into surplus because it's in that line item that we're looking at on this page, whether it's the park rangers. Can we budget for surplus?
No.
Okay. Can
Are we
budget
borrowing
for
for surplus? Are we borrowing from surplus?
Because it's from that line item, Jason. Jason, it's
I
in
would
that
like
line.
to call the question, roll call.
Motion.
I'll make the
Adopt the
motion.
amendment.
The motion.
No,
This is the second.
Who's first to say? You need a first
Councilman Hamadudin made the motion. Dr. Pruitt seconded.
to vote the budget as introduced, as amended by Amendment 1, which I read into the record.
Can you make the motion just for the record again? So
I'd like
there's
to
no
make the
question.
motion to adopt the amended budget with a cut of $320,000, $250,000 from the BCUA, and $70,000 from the park rangers to be removed.
Councilmember Castle.
No.
Councilmember Hamidine.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Katz.
No.
Councilmember Pruitt. Councilmember Schwartz.
Yes.
Councilmember Sol.
No.
Mayor.
Yes.
Budget is voted.
The budget is passed as amended. I would like